ensure that you hit all the different components of the instructional frame. So the first thing you see here is that I have an objective, which is to cite strong and thorough textual evidence to support analysis of what the text says explicitly. So you remember the first part of what we have to do is we have to have clear assessment descriptors, and we also have to have clear success criteria. So before I even start planning, I'm going to make sure that those two things are available to me so that I can make sure that I can then plan the lesson. So for instance, for assessment descriptors, my level 1 is a student can complete, can cite a source using 3 to 5 times in the correct format. Notice that's only one part of this actual objective, because the objective is about citing strong and thorough textual evidence. So dealing with the assessment, being able to cite is only one part of it. The second part I have to deal with is that it has to be strong and thorough textual evidence. So then I'm also going to do student selects, quotes, and paraphrases, using correct citation. And they also have to do this 3 to 5 times. And then level 3, student selects quotes, passages, paraphrases, and articulates. Why citation supports argument, and uses format. 3 to 5 times. Okay. Anybody have any questions how I got those assessment descriptors? Okay. So I just want to go over one thing real quick. Notice how this is developmental. So most kids, when you introduce citations to them, what's the first thing that they're worried about? Introduce citations, you have kids doing citations and papers, what are they worried about?
Wrong format?
Okay, all they worry about is format. So the first thing is, let's get the format question out of the way so we don't even have to deal with that. So now you know how to do the format. So that's the first thing my activity has to deal with is format. Second thing, they have to select quotes and they have to be able to paraphrase. That's a different skill. So I know first I'm going to teach kids about citations, what they are, how do they look. Next thing I'm going to teach them is the basics of having to do it. So when they start selecting evidence, what's the next thing that they do? Do they integrate well? Have you guys ever had kids do citations at all?
We like kids doing something.
Okay, so the next thing kids do when you start having them do citations is they tend to just pick out stuff and slap it on the paper and put the format after it and think that they have mastered it. So now we're going to make sure that they can select the quotes, they can paraphrase it, and they can use the citation format. Then what we really are trying to get to is this. They can select, they can paraphrase, and they can articulate. So that the quote or whatever or the evidence they select is actually integrated into the text, which is where you ultimately want to be. The second part of this would be to make sure your success criteria are clear. For level 1, why would kids be successful? Can you think of some criteria that would make them successful? If they did those things, you know that they can cite a source in the correct format.
Select citation.
Okay, so 1, they can select the citation format. So it's not just one. So like APA, MLA, etc. Most likely, because it's 12th grade, you're going to use MLA or APA, but they should be able to select when is the appropriate time to use which. That also lends itself to the interdisciplinary portion of my lesson, which is thinking about how different fields need different information when they cite. The other thing I want to make sure is they can use a handbook, or a website to figure out appropriate citations. And that it's inserted into paper in correct format. So because we're doing an instructional lesson and we can only do one part at a time, I'm only going to focus on what the lesson would look like if this was my focus. So the focus I have is to cite strong and thorough textual evidence. Today's lesson is actually going to be, the first lesson will actually be on citing. And I'll be focused on level 1. Students can cite a source 3 to 5 times in the correct format. And then I'm going to select so that means that the students will be able to select citation format, use handbook, cite to figure it out, and then they can insert it into a paper with the correct format. Everybody got that? So if you look on the instruction frame, what you'll see is that is the required prep work before you even start planning the first part of the frame. Now we're going to plan the opening. I can ensure that kids can access that. So the first thing I got to do is figure out how to get kids interested in citation, which is probably one of the most boring things that we talk about in any field because nobody's really interested in citation. So when I think about something that would make kids interested, I know kids are interested by controversy, they're interested by having to make decisions. So I'm going to do an activity I'm going to create called Citers or Liars. I want to present scenarios. Where students have to determine the best source. So I'm going to give them 3 standard choices, which would be a person, like a personal friend or something, a personal acquaintance, the news, or a text. Anybody know why I would do this kind of activity first?
so that they can be able to cite or to be able to identify the various different evidence that they need.
Okay, so one, they have to be, why do we cite in the first place?
Well, like copyright stuff, but then again, like credibility, it's just because John said that, but then again, compared to like a Wikipedia page or like a .org or a .gov page, so.
Exactly. So you need them to think about the reason why we cite. So they have to understand there's different levels of credibility depending on the source that they pick. And that's going to be something very important for them to consider as they try to move to level 3, where they're going to articulate something. Because if they have to justify using something from Wikipedia, which actually tends to be a third party source rather than a primary or a secondary, that's an issue. So I'm going to start off getting them thinking about why we use citations in the first place and why we have to find the best evidence. So I got them thinking about this, citers or liars. So then, I got them activated. So they had to figure this out. Now I'm going to have them list what info do they need to prove somebody is credible. And I'll give them some models. So probably some pamphlets, some short articles, a YouTube video, give them a variety of different things. The purpose of this right here is kids come up with criteria. Then teacher gives criteria. And then the class negotiates criteria. Looking at the frames, what have I addressed? I should got you onto video. So.
You're giving them areas where they can cite the source, and you're giving them the option.
But on the instruction frame sheet, what am I addressing?
Model,
Okay, so we did the modeling. What else have we addressed?
explicit, I say.
Okay, we got explicit instruction.
Mhm.
What else do we have?
Opening,
Okay, we got intro to the content. What else do we have? It's a long list. So let's go over one by one. Do I have an activating strategy?
Yeah,
Okay, what's the activating strategy?
it's the opening activity, right?
Yeah, the citers or liars.
Right,
So that's my hook.
yes.
Do I have explicit teaching of the objective and success criteria?
Yes.
Have I done that yet?
yeah, by giving them the actual criteria, that's explicit teaching, right?
That's a success.
You're looking at the 3 to 5 things you wanted to get correct in the formula.
Yeah, so
Your
they
objective.
haven't gotten that yet, so that's something that's missing. So here, we're still really activating. What they're doing here is they are starting to work on developing the success criteria. Remember, to be in reach distinguished, what has to happen and occur? The kids have to contribute to the assessment descriptors themselves and the success criteria themselves. So at this point, the kids kind of sort of know what we're going to do. They haven't